issues that we are experiencing at a time like this. I'm going to be speaking actually very freely, and I'm speaking mainly from my experiences as an educator for the over 50 years span in education. When I started teaching in the late 60s and early 70s, there were not many male teachers in the classroom. I taught at a school, a high school in the rural area of Jamaica, and 4 inner city schools in Kingston and St. Andrew. One of them I was principal for a number of years. What I noticed at the time in the early years of my life as a teacher is that although there were not many men in the classroom, and for the most part, the leadership in the schools in which I taught were female by and large, except for one. Although that was so, the problems that we were experiencing or that we are seeing today were not as significant. They were not as enormous. They are not as troubling as they are today. But we cannot look at the question of the problems in school, the social ills in schools, the violence in schools, the antisocial behaviors in schools. We cannot just look at them from the mere angle of the school, because it is just not a school problem. It is a societal problem. And over the years, I've watched the trend. It just goes higher and higher. But along with the problems in schools in relation to the social issues, we also have experienced over the years a growing and troubling problem in the society. So what I'm saying, therefore, is that the problems in schools cannot be seen in isolation to the problems in the society. And as far back in the 90s, in the early 90s, the late Professor Nettleford, over and over in different forums, he kept talking about the problems he was noticing in the nation, in our nation, Jamaica. And in 2001, I conducted a UNESCO research project on violence in 6 Caribbean schools, CARICOM schools. And it was the same issue, the link between the growing problems in the society and the incursion of those problems into the classrooms. So that the topic today is very, very important. And the question that is being asked is whether getting more men, having more men, as we had in a time gone past, if we were to recruit more men, if we were to increase the salaries of teachers, make the working conditions better, attracting more males in the system, if that in and of itself would help in solving the problems that we are experiencing in the schools. My opinion is that perhaps having more men in the classroom would help. But as I said earlier on, the problem is deeper than in the schools. It is a societal problem. Just after I've done some work, I'm working now with some principals in both primary and high schools. And after COVID, we decided to visit, our team decided to visit a number of the schools just to find out how they were doing, what were the issues they were experiencing, and so on. And to a man and woman, their experiences were really compounded. The problems, the social problems, were compounded after COVID. What every single one of them said to us was that the problems that they were experiencing prior to COVID, that is the fights and the disagreements and the disobedience and the breaking of rules and so on, were primarily in the third and fourth form, say third to fifth form. And those of us who are teachers, who are educators, know that third form is actually where you begin to see some of the issues as children are getting, particularly with the boys, as they are getting to assert themselves, to try to find who they are, a sense of self, and so on. You usually find the issues there. But what these principals were saying to us was that the problems, the grave problems they were experiencing with the social ills were coming from the grades 7, that is first formers. And why was this happening? COVID meant that children were, for the most part, not in a school setting. Remember now that these children would have been coming from the primary schools into the high schools. So they would then be coming into a new space. They would be meeting new people, they would be meeting new teachers, and they would be making social links. But with the online classes, many of these children were on their own. Their parents were at work. They were exposed to all sorts of ills in their communities. Many of them were not even online because there were not sufficient equipment in some of the schools for them to go online. So what the principals were saying to us was that these youths, these grade 7, 11, 12-year-olds, right, were now, because of the experiences during the COVID period, because they were exposed to all sorts of antisocial behaviors in their communities, because they were alone at home and so had no guidance or very little guidance. These were the ones that were now presenting the problems. A number of principals admitted to us that they have never had so many suspensions in at the grade 7 level. So what I'm trying to say is that we cannot treat the problem in the school in isolation of the problems in the society. They are interlinked. There is no two ways about that. And so when we started seeing the creeping levels of antisocial behaviors and violence in the schools and breaking of rules and so on, there were responses. There were responses. Many communities, community groups, many organizations tried to come up with responses, proposals to help to lessen the impact of the experiences that these kids were having. You had, for example, PALS, Peace and Love in Schools, which was a peace program, as it says, in schools at the time. You had a program which I participated in called Parents' Place. And that Parents' Place was providing a space in each school in which parents could come in and deal with issues, not just issues, negative issues with their children, but they could come in at any time. In fact, in some schools, the parent places were used to have football matches among parents, domino games among parents. In other words, bringing the parents more connected with the school. And that was very successful. And the program that I am closely associated with and was a founding member of, the Change from Within program, which I will tell you a little bit about later on. So there were community groups that were having programs trying to deal with some of the issues in the communities before they reach the school level. But what happened? What happened? Why were these programs not sustained? The problem is that I can't speak for any other country, but I know in Jamaica, and I'm sure it's so in the wider Caribbean, we do not have a policy of continuation of programs and policies. Whenever a new regime comes in, it throws out everything or most of the things that the previous regime did, and it goes on and on. And then when the other regime comes in, it does the same thing. So we don't have that kind of way of dealing with and continuing programs that work. They get shelved from one administration to the next. And that's a problem. So it's not that we have not had programs which try to deal with some of these issues, but the programs were not sustained. We also have a problem in persons and organizations trying not to build upon what exists, but to start something new. And why? Because we have a poor sense of self. We need to say, it is mine, I did it, I started it. I'm the one who's responsible for it. And so some of these programs get shelved in that way. I remember under a previous Minister of Education, in dealing with this very problem of violence and antisocial behaviors in schools, what that minister tried to do was to bring a number of projects together, projects and programs that were working, that research had been done on, that data had been gathered, and there was evidence that they were working. And all of the program coordinators or managers came together. We looked at each program and we looked at the strengths. What were the main strengths of each program? And we put together, based on the strengths of the individual programs, we put together one umbrella program so that if the program that you had, if the strength was, for example, in, let's say, leadership building, then that is what that particular program or project would focus on in the wider, under the wider umbrella program. That program started, and again, because of what I said previously, it was dropped because a different regime came in, and so it did not continue with with that type of program. So that's, it's not that we have not in the Jamaica and wider CARICOM region, it's not that we have not put programs together. There are multitudes of programs. I mean, many programs exist, and many of them work and doing well. But for those reasons, they have not been continued. Another important reason, too, is funding. Any program that is going to really be, you know, achieve its goal is you have to have some amount of funding. You have to have, to carry out certain things, you have to have funding. We all know that. And that is another issue. Many of those programs and projects did not get the necessary funding, so they either were scrapped or they were scaled down. So that the point I'm making is that, yes, we do have a problem in schools now. But first of all, that problem has been a creeping one for years. It has been around for a very long time, but it just gets more and more as the society itself becomes more and more antisocial, more violent, more dispassionate. There's a way in which we do not care enough about one another. There's a way in which the empathy is lacking in many of us. And I say us, yes, because it is a problem for all of us. When you recently, I read in the newspaper, there was a problem with some leakage of CSEC papers a couple of years ago in a particular school in Jamaica. And it was investigated, and we just heard the results of the investigation. There are some staff members who were found guilty of giving the papers to students prior to the exam, helping the students, etc. And the school board took action. Just to give you an example of what we're dealing with. Do you know that the school board, in taking action, faced the wrath of a number of the parents who said that they were going to demonstrate against the action of the board because those persons who lost their job should not have lost their job. These are persons who, in the same parents who were talking about demonstrating, their children would have suffered. I mean, they might have gotten results, good results in CSEC, but in terms of the negativity of how the children would be looking at stealing and, all of these things, they were saying, no, nothing wrong with that. That's basically what they were saying. So you see the problem we're having. This society, again, this society is the problem. And the more we have the problems in the society, the more problems we're going to have in the schools. With the advent, when I did that research in the 6 states there, the media was an issue that came up. Some of the images that were being portrayed in the media, uh, children were no longer in a couple of the schools, children were no longer face-to-face bullying, but it was online, it was it was shared with students from all over and so on. So we therefore, and I'm glad that you have taken on this topic, because my main interaction with you this evening is to spur you on to not just speaking about the problem, to not just identifying the genesis of the problem, but for us, for you to
Okay.
begin to participate, to take action, because you can, in fact, take action. The question is, can we turn this around? Can it be turned around? The second question is, if it can be turned around, how? How? How can we do this? It's a mammoth task. You're talking about a nation. You're talking about a nation which is impacting the schools. So how do we go about this? And that's the main thing I want us to focus on, because we know where it's coming from. I'm not telling you anything new. You all know that. That is the issue. But how do we? What do we do? What can we do? Is there anything we can do? And I mentioned earlier that there were projects and programs that were implemented, and some of them are still limping along with the constraints that I mentioned earlier on, but they're still limping along because there are people in our societies who believe in the human spirit to be good, and they therefore have not given up. And by your raising this question of whether having more males in the schools would help with the problem, it means that you yourself have decided that you're not giving up. You are going to find a way. You are searching for a way to help to make the place a better one. I want to share with you the project that I have been working with for the past 30 or so years. The project is called Change from Within, and in the introduction, it was mentioned that I'm involved with this project because my discussion with you this evening is a discussion of hope. Hope, right? We can complain, we can cry, we can hold our heads in anguish, but we cannot give up. Hope is what we have. We have to have hope. And you are telling me this evening that you have hope. You feel that something can be done to turn this around. But Before I go into the details of the project, what we have to realize is that in the same way that we have reached a point over time, it just didn't happen like that. It happened just over time, a long time. We have been seeing this problem, and it just kept getting worse and worse. In the same way, if we are going to take action to help to make this place a better place, to make the schools safer and a better learning environment, we have to understand that this thing is not a fly-by-night thing. It's going to take time. It's going to take consistency. It's going to take hard work. But we first have to believe that it can happen. We have to believe. And once we have that belief, then we have to recognize that is grueling work, hard work, long, sustained work. So this project I'm telling you about, and I'm going to share, I'm going to send there's a podcast on it, that I'm going to share with your leadership on it, which would give you more details, which you can then share with the wider community, the persons who are online here, and you can all share it with whomsoever you wish to share it with. But as I said, this project is called Change from Within. And as the name suggests, it started from within the schools themselves. You know, sometimes when we talk about peace projects and interventions, we have a way of coming with, excuse me, we have a way of coming with something set out, sealed, signed, arranged by a group of people who sometimes don't even know the schools. And we present it to the schools and we say, yeah, this project, you need to work on this project. No. How the change from within started, and this was in 1993. And I go back, remember I said earlier on that it is this problem that we're experiencing. It's just that it has escalated, but it has been with us for a long time. Educator, as an educator, he knew that the schools, in fact, schools are socializing communities. And therefore, he felt that if we're going to tackle or help to tackle the problems, we needed to look to education. And it started out with some research. And he assembled together a group of persons, educators, and social scientists from the University of the West Indies, Mona, started a group, and they identified 4 schools. They were all inner city schools in Kingston and St. Andrew and St. Catherine. 4 schools in volatile communities who were completely turning around the school in terms of the social fabric of the school. And as a result, they were experiencing positive outcomes in education generally. So what they did was they researched the 4 schools. They went into the first 4 schools to find out what was it that these schools, what was the common, what were the common threads? What was it that created that methodology that the 4 schools were actually doing? And interestingly, those 4 schools were, the 4 principals were not known to each other really. They were just in that space trying to make a difference. And the research that they did over years extracted the methodology, the common things that those schools were all doing. And they were all doing the same things, but unbeknown to each other. And they were experiencing these positive outcomes without even knowing that each other was doing that. And the methodology that they extracted, that they found, was basically one which saw the school not as the 4 walls, but saw the school when they talked about school in the Change from Within. We're talking about the community in which the school is situated, the physical community. You're talking about teachers, principals, students, ancillary staff, clerical staff, casual workers. Every facet of the school was recognized as school. You know, normally when you think of school, you think of the classroom, the teachers, the principal, and that's it. But in these 4 schools, they were giving and looking and treating with a broader idea of school. And so the first arm of that methodology was building the leadership. The leadership. And by leadership, we're talking about principals, the second level leadership in the schools, that is the senior teachers, the grade supervisors, the students, student leaders, the parents in the PTA, and those schools went further. They went into the community and pulled in some of the community leadership in some of the community groups. So that constituted the school. And they started to focus on leadership building. What does it mean to be a leader? What are the ingredients of a good leader? And out of that leadership phenomenon, they formed what was called a circle of friends. Circle of friends. What that circle of friends did was it would meet on a regular basis, share what they were doing, successes. They shared successes. They shared shortcomings. They learned from each other. There are people who came in and gave seminars on different aspects of leadership. So they built the focus on leadership. That was one of the main areas that the project, at the time it was a project, it's now a program, that focused on building school leadership. And as I said, by school leadership, we're talking about all those areas, all those different components that make up a school that I spoke to just a while ago. Another arm of the methodology was the focusing on the positives. Focusing on the positives. We are now talking about violence and antisocial behaviors in schools. Even in those schools where they had this whole problem with the bus on the bus the other day, with the stabbings and the fightings and so on. Even in those schools, there are positives. And so the program focused in those 4 schools, which started out, they tried to unearth the positives. What were the positives in those schools? What is it that made those children click, made those parents click, made the teachers click? What spurred them on? What made them feel good? Focus on those, right? Once you focused on the positives, it meant that you had to find a new pedagogy, a new way of teaching and learning. So, in one of the schools, for example, sports, interests, we're talking about what interests, what sparks the people. In one of those schools, if you had a football match, remember this is an inner city school, and the school, the play field, the sports field, the football stadium was right across from the school. So whenever there was a football match, you know what happened? School empty. Nobody came. Parents took their children to the school, to the stadium, no school. So right away, in that school, under the change from within, they realized sports, football was what made them click. But football, in and of itself, can create problems. Because if you focus on football just for football's sake, without bringing it into the center of the school, then clearly you're going to be still having these problems. So they changed the leadership of the school at the time, along with a committee of parents, teachers, and students, decided that they were going to focus on that. So let's, for example, in a mathematics class, we had a coach, a football coach, and we got to understand that he could teach mathematics. So guess what? They got him to teach math. So he was not just a football coach, not just coming in and in the evenings and coaching the boys, but he was a teacher. He was a math teacher. And what he was encouraged to do was to teach his mathematics using the football language. For example, one class that he had, he was teaching angles. And he used the idea of a goalkeeper in football and a penalty shooter. And the children got the thing right away that the goalkeeper had to try to cut off. They knew the language, you know. They all shouted out, he has to cut off the angle. He has to try to cut off the angle, right? Right away, they knew. And so these are the kinds of things that they did in terms of having the interest pinned to the performance of the students. The football, for example, the team members, the boys who would represent the school, had to come at assembly, say why they think they should represent the school. And in some instances, they were not approved by the rest of the students because the students right there and then felt that they were not good models, so they could not represent the school. Right? So that it was not just football, right? The there were match not referees, but they were the inspectors. There were students who were match inspectors. So they would go to the matches and they would record who got a red card, who got a yellow card. Then they come back to school the next day and it would be trashed out at assembly. So assembly was not just to have morning prayers, worship prayers. Assembly was a place that there was conversation taking place. And by the way, in that particular school, assemblies were open to people in the community. So there are people who would come from the community, speak about issues in the community, speak to the children about things that they saw them doing in the evenings that they didn't think that they should be doing. All of these things were part and parcel of the using that interest to spur the students along, but using it in a, a very constructive way. So the positives, I'll just give you an example of one school and the positive that was used in that school. The interest and the positive, in a way, go together. The other thing that the other part of the methodology was the question of building capacity building. So students, there were seminars, particularly for the student leaders. They would go out to functions. They would go to, for example, something like this we're having now. Students would be able to participate in, to listen in, to give their views in on. So the students build, this capacity of the students were being built, the capacity of the teachers were being built, and the capacity of the parents and the wider community. So programs were put in place for all the stakeholders of the school to build their capacity. So mentoring is also a very, very important part of that project. And in that school example I'm giving you, the mentoring didn't mean just teachers mentoring students. Teachers mentored teachers. Students mentored students. Parents mentored parents. So the mentoring, because in the beginning, the idea of the school was a broader idea. So you had parents, teachers, community leaders. You had mentorship among each of that group. Mentorship programs were established for them. So that program, over time, I said it started with 4 schools, and over time, it swelled to approximately 30 odd schools all over the island. Uh, Schools were asking to come on the program, but we could not accommodate them because of the constraints that I mentioned earlier on. But we developed over time a relationship. Again, schools are not cannot be seen in isolation. We developed our relationship with the then Ministry of Health. And the Ministry of Health at the time had uh, um, a program for youth, right? They had a youth program. And that program, we linked up with that program. And over time, the program introduced a healthy lifestyle component into the program. So then we were talking about the kinds of food you had in the canteen. You're talking about uh, ensuring that you are healthy, the kinds of food you're eating, the kind of ways that you're conducting, treating your body, diseases. All of these things became a part of the program. Again, you see the linkages that have to take place if we're going to deal with the issue of schools, of problems in schools, antisocial behaviors, and violence in school. The schools cannot do it in isolation. Now, after those 4 schools, it expanded, as I said earlier on. The 30-odd schools at the time were involved, and we began a student leadership program countrywide. So each year, we had students in the school who were student leaders who we would interface with from time to time. But each summer now, we would have camps, student leadership in the different schools. So sometimes you'd have over 100 students in a camp. And basically, what we were doing is giving them more leadership skills so that they could go back into their various schools and lead. Now, at present, I was the leader at the University of the West Indies. That's where the program is, the School of Education. Of course, I've retired many moons now. And we have a new program leader. I still work with the program. But what I am putting to you this evening, what I'm saying to you this evening, I'm just giving you a glimpse, just a glimpse. What I'm saying is that the problem in the schools can, in fact, be tackled. We have done research on this program. We have data which shows us the positive outcomes that have taken place in the schools. We have data to show how many new young principals have come out of our circle of friends. There are quite a number of young principals who are now operating in schools here and abroad who benefited from the circle of friends, the mentoring, and the capacity building. So we do have indicators which show that um, it can work, it does work, it can work. It's limited now. It's not as it was. I would say in the 2001, 2002, when we were getting more funding. It's limited now, but it's still, we have not given up. We're still moving on with it. We're still moving on. And I'm challenging you this evening you do work in schools with young people, you do work in communities. I'm challenging you that if you believe that we can get a turnaround, slow turnaround, slugging work turnaround, then I am proposing that you join us in whatever way you can in helping to make the schools through this project a safer, more pleasant, more productive space in our nation. So I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to share the podcast with your leadership later on because it's long. I couldn't share it with you this evening. And you can then look at it and you will know how to get in touch and so on. So I thank you very much for listening to my ramblings, but and I hope that we'll have a very good discussion following. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Chevannes. I think because we have kind of overshot our time frame, I think we can only allow a very few questions, and I'm gonna
Yes.
suggest that those who have anything burning, please, put your hands up in the chat, or how, if you know how to do that, we'll call on you, and then we will get a few questions in, because we have to get a few questions in. But we're a bit way beyond our time frame. So I see one hand up. Okay, Camille Swap.
DP Stewart? DP Stewart?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
If I may, sir, before you get into the question and answer, can I ask a member of the club to move for extension of 15 minutes to conclude our business?
I move.
Moved by BDT Ralston. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, DP Stewart.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay, Camille Swap. Please go ahead. You're on.
Good evening, everyone. I am passionate. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you for raising it, Mrs. Chevannes. Thanks for your contribution and your years of dedication towards the improving the school system in general. As a developmental psychologist, a little different. We look at groups of children's behaviors. We looked at development from in utero, in mommy's tummy, to somewhere around 25 years old as child and adolescent developmental psychologists. And so we don't just look at how the family impacts, but how the whole society, as she said, impacts, and school policies in education. I have had, I live in Trinidad and Tobago. I'd like to say I live between Jamaica. I'm Jamaican. I live in Trinidad and Tobago, and living here has really opened my eyes to the Caribbean dilemma of how we have this good tool of schooling that we're not using to the best in modern times. I've also worked with incarcerated youth, and I'm saying this very clearly. The behavior for all around town, uptown, downtown, races, and various religions. There's one thing that is a unifying discussion, is that when we don't understand people, we cannot make good policies for them. So if we don't understand people in their 50s and 60s, we cannot make policies for that age group. I am pleading with you that this did not start overnight. We have an old system that is not focused on human development, and so that the experts on behavior should not be just used as a knee-jerk reaction when a child is having a problem. I talk about joyful learning. I've met in child development conferences in Trinidad and Tobago, and I had one in my homeland, joyful learning. I am saying, get the information on brain development. Now get the information on child and teen development. Infuse your school system. Parents, policymakers in education, everybody on it, because we are positioned to do well in the Caribbean if we would bring in the human development information so that we can change policies. Because what Mrs. Chevannes is saying is that a lot of people are working hard out there with like programs, but we have an inflexible system that does not really research these programs and now write it into policy. So we don't want one-star principal and one-star school. And for the poor children, let me just speak for the children and parents who don't have the option to move to international school off the island or get a green card.
Thank you.
They are dying and they're suffering out there, just like the middle class parent and the rich parent who said, Mrs. Swap, I'm scared of my child's esteem being damaged in this system. What was the poor to do if the rich, the strong, the teacher's child is still the school? I love my Caribbean school, and I like it for many reasons, our passion of education. But I dislike it when we will not improve the offerings to males and females, and most boys are not ready to take anything serious by brain till 16, but they're graduates at 16 to go out on the road with no money and no hope. And girls fall in love and have babies. I don't want to hold up your meeting.
Okay.
I want to say, put money into the human development experts, the social workers, the psychologists, and don't just use them when there's a killing and where they have to be in prevention mode to help policymakers to make good policies. School entrance age.
Okay.
Anybody that have a child
Thank you.
here,
Thank you, Ms. Swap.
please.
We really
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let us go to Joan Davis. I'm not
Yes,
sure
I'll be
if
quiet. I endorse what my colleagues have just said. Good morning again, everyone. If we are in a river and we see dead fish coming down, there's no need picking up the dead fish at the bottom. We need to go to the top to find what the problem is. And tried and proven. We need to put the more dedicated and educated teachers at early childhood. And we need to be more deliberate in teaching parenting skills from the children are born. The manners and the principles and the integrity and the what have you, that is what is going to make them into better adults who will become better workers and parents and lawyers and doctors. When we teach, when we put the teachers there, so we're going to do a two-pronged thing. Start with the early childhood, and we can start, and Mrs. Savan, you know this. In Jamaica, for example, you start it in your own school, and the ministry will adopt it. You take it to the ministry, and it is dead. Yeah? I've worked at Arden for almost 38 years, and that is what we did. We implemented things in our school with the great Esther Tyson. It worked, and we have created great generations from that. So start it down there. Involve the parents. When you teach the children the parenting skills, involve the parents. So this is what we are teaching your child. We need you now to continue it. We can time parenting meetings with graduation. We love graduation. Yeah, so they'll turn off for graduation. So teach the parenting skills, because what is it that we're looking at? It's the integrity, it's all the soft skills that are being trampled on. Because as Caribbean countries, we get excellent CXC passes, excellent K passes, but our people lack integrity. So we need to start from somewhere. One last point. Right after COVID, I had a series of free workshops for teachers, parents, and other persons. And they were labeled, it cannot be business as usual. Because I believe that we should not have gone back into the school system to teach CXC and CAPE and all the other subjects right after whatever, COVID.
Yes, Joan.
We are Caribbean, all we flung us a Caribbean country. We said CXC, we said CAPE. We could have said, this is it, we are going to cut the CAPE syllabus by half for the next 3 years. And we are going to be teaching only these. These are the topics coming on the exam. We are going to be using the other thing now, the other times in school to re-socialize the children and their parents. If we had done that, we wouldn't have 3/4 of what we are having now. Forgive me, but I'm very emotional about this. I tell my Minister of Education that probably I need to leave the country and come back with an accent, Paulette, and they will understand me and hear me. But they're not here when we are on the ground. We have our hands in the teaching. You cannot create syllabus and so for people that you have never taught and you have never experienced. I'm done. I'm out of here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see another hand up.
Lois C.
Oh, that's
Lois has her hand up.
Yes.
Hi, good night.
Oh yes, Lois, go ahead.
I just have a question. I know Paulette has lots of experience. Hi, P.
Hello.
In the many pieces of research that you have done, and maybe other educators who are on the program, is there in fact anything that has said that having more male teachers has made a difference? Or have any of those programs depended on the presence of male teachers to make a difference in the school? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay. There is, as far as I know, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Right. As far as I've been able to ascertain, I don't know of any research that has been done, Loy, in relation to that topic as to whether more males would make a difference. In the work that is being done or that I have participated in, we have not really seen any. I figure we weren't focusing on that actually, but we haven't seen any difference in that regard, Lloyd, in terms of males versus females, or bringing more males into the system. We have not experienced that. We haven't focused on that, so I really can't say that whether it is, whether it's positive or negative. But I mean, we can always benefit from having more males in the system.
I could,
but the point is, just bringing them in is not going to solve the problem.
I just want to interject to say that somebody who saw the flyer that I posted on Facebook and other social media commented that he had seen a lot of research, but granted it was US based, which appeared to support the theory that more males in the classroom was a positive. But I wasn't able to have a discussion with the person who in fact, to be honest, he just said there was a lot of research. What I kind of tried to ask him, so was it confirming or, and he didn't get back to me, but I think he was really supporting the idea. So, but I'm going to ask him specifically after maybe tomorrow or so, and see what more information. But apparently there is research, but it was US based.
It's not Caribbean though.
No, it was US based.
Oh, okay.
What he had seen, it was US based. Okay, is there one more? Because this will be the last question if there's another hand up, but I don't see another hand up. President Newton, I know we have another activity after this section. So maybe you could go to DP Earl. And but let me just say something before. Somebody has been designated to thank you, Mr. Chevans. But I just want to put in another little thank you, because I would not have made contact with you without my niece Cleo, who I shared the concept that I had for this particular meeting, and she really went to town and she gave me your name, and I'm so happy, because when you went through the basically what you presented, I'm really so happy that she made the connection with us, and we are grateful. But back to you, President Newton.
Thank you, Stuart. I was so interested in what is going on. I believe it or not, I actually lost my program.
Okay, DP Earl is gonna do the thank you.
It is DP Earl who is going to be doing the vote of thanks.
Yes.
But before I bring on DP Earl, who I see has opened his camera, so he's ready to go, I just want to acknowledge the presence of my mom, Eulalie, who is herself a retired teacher, and my sister. So that said, DP Earl, please go ahead and thank Mrs. Chevans on behalf of all of us, sir.
This is going to be an easy job, because most of the participants who spoke, Mrs. Chevans, have voiced quite a few of the concerns and with such passion, and they couldn't, one of them could have needed a whole night for this. But I'm not calling any names because I think two of them could have done so. But the only thing I was not so happy about is because the subject actually asked about or rather touched on the male, and you folks, you leader ladies, have not really sort of spotted that the paucity of men, or you have admitted that the paucity of men is mainly because they would not be able to afford to raise their families, although you do have some dedicated sacrificial lambs among the males. But you said it's work in progress, and it is unfortunate that since we have had the adult suffrage and so on, every government changes back. They used to change out all the letters of things and change names of agencies. I didn't realize that they stopped projects. They go on and then they need to say, I did this. That's so childish. But they haven't recognized that. And I hope some of them have been listening to you or even try to reread what you have researched, and not you alone, but your whole team, and see that the things that work, you have to do it differently. I'm 80 now. I can't change anything now. But boy, I only hope that the younger ones will come up. And you have taught us a lot. And every day we learn. And tonight, we're really happy to have had such a large audience. And I know many more wanted to say something, but the program has been recorded and they will benefit from it. So on behalf of everybody, and especially the Kiwanis Club of Kingston, we would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation that you will get in not virtual form, you can see it now, but you'll get a real one to hang among your many other accolades. So we thank you very much for having addressed us tonight, and please don't stop. And with all the others who are in the work, don't stop. But you need to bring in men too, and you said not just bring in men, but I mean, they need to be inspired to be able to raise their families at the same time. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And just to say, there are many in our group,
Oh.
Okay.
Well,
no,
so
we don't leave out the men.
Okay. Okay, thank you for reminding us.
And I look forward to getting that podcast that you mentioned.
I definitely.
So
I
you
definitely.
have my connect, my links
Sure.
already.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, clear.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, DP Earl. Thank you, DP Stuart, and a special thank you to Mrs. CHEVANNES. I'm hopeful that with so many persons online and from different countries, from different borders, that what you have said tonight will be that spark that starts the change, because we really need to change. We can't continue along the same route that we have been going. Okay, now we will be the Kiwanis Club of Kingston. We will be having our annual general meeting. It's scheduled for the 7th of May. And so at this point, I'm going to ask DLG Stan Dunwell to present us the report of the nominating committee. DLG Stan?
I'm on.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, President. I would also like to add that I was a maths teacher in 1964. And my first teaching job was at Jamaica College teaching maths. Report of the nominating committee. President-elect Stephen Gregg Is it sole nominee for office of president? President-elect Vice President Garfield Wint, Treasurer Orville Lewis, Secretary to be named by President-designate as per mandatory club policies. Assistant Secretary and Treasurer to be named by the President-designate. Outgoing directors are Oriane Gordon, Errol Hamilton, Warren McDonald, and returning directors are Andrew Burton, Dalma James, and Arsenio Sawers. List of nominees not exceeding number of directors plus 3. DP Marcel Boyce and DP Rupert Whitaker have indicated that they are willing to serve as directors. The remaining directors to be named once contact has been made with the person to get his approval. Also, we need to put in place a vice president so that we will continue along the line. At least 1 week before the annual meeting on May 7th, nominations from the floor may be made for any office. When so made together with the list submitted by the nominating committee, shall then be the list of nominees submitted for an election of officers and directors. Thank you very much, President. That's the report of the nominating committee.
Thank you, DLG Stan, for that report. And club members, remember, you can nominate if there are persons who in the club who you believe will serve and serve faithfully. Remember, you will be able to nominate them before the AGM. So please keep that in mind.
President, please note they have to get the approval of the members before they are nominated. If they are to be nominated
you have to.
They have to get the approval of the member, the persons who they are nominating.
And they have to be in good standing.
Right, because you don't want to nominate someone who is not willing, and it also you have to ascertain that the person is in good standing with the club, meaning all the dues and so are up to date. All right, thank you. At this point, we're going to bring in the Sergeant at Arms, Chairman Zuri Johnson. Sarge? All right, it seems the Sarge is not on. And since we have had such a wonderful time with Mrs. Chevannes, I think we can move on now to notices and announcements into clubbing opportunities. First of all, let me start. Are there any DLG Willie? I know we spoke about notices and announcements. Is there any addition?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Thank you. Thank you. President, I'll take this item very quickly.
Yes, I'm hearing you. Loud and clear.
All right, let me just 1 sec. All right. First notice, tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m., the Barbie Fry Planning Committee will be meeting at my house. Tickets are now available for distribution. We have already so far distributed 250 tickets, and flyers also available for anybody who wants to circulate the flyers. Just a reminder, the annual general meeting is on May the 9th. And that includes the election of officers for the administrative year. You just heard the report from the chairman of the nominating committee. Just a reminder to all CHEVANNES that only active members can vote. To vote or hold position, you have to be in good standing. Just a reminder, the ECNC District Convention is being held in Montego Bay from May the 17th to the 19th. Late registration is still available up to May 5th. Late registration is currently 390 Canadian dollars. President and members, we have been invited on Thursday, that's the 25th of April, to Kiwanis Club of Spanish Town 50th anniversary meeting. They meet upstairs
The Arians Club.
That's correct. That's correct. I just had it missing here.
Arians Restaurant, Spanish Town.
Arians Restaurant. That's in Spanish Town, just as you enter Spanish Town, and the old road is on the left-hand side in the plaza. And they have extended a very special invitation to us, so we want to give them as much support as we can. Hopefully, we can get a team to go over there on Thursday evening. Remember now, especially newer members, Kiwanis Club of Spanish Town was the 5th club sponsored by the Kiwanis Club of Kingston in Jamaica. President Newton, those are the notices and announcements, and the one inter-club opportunities. Others will be circulated in due time.
Sorry,
Thank
you. Just a
Thank
correction.
you.
Just a correction, President.
Go ahead.
Your AGM is Tuesday, May 7th. And I'm sure you
Yes,
said.
I was about to make that correction. That's right. Tuesday, May 7th, not the 9th is Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Noted.
Okay, thank you.
I lost my paper, so I was doing out of memory.
Okay. Are there any other announcements from any other club online?
Yes, I have an announcement. The Kiwanis Club of Otameni will be having an exciting auction on.
If you have it, please go ahead and do so. Make it.
Are you hearing me?
Go ahead. Yes, we can.
Okay. The Kiwanis Club of Otameni will be having an auction on Tuesday, April the 30th. Among the items are JetBlue airline tickets, lounge passes, 50-inch smart TV, and many other exciting prizes. I will pass on the information to DP Stewart to be circulated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcement? No? Okay, so we invite DP Marcel. DP Marcel?
Short and to the point. I am on. It's all for the day, for the week, and for the rest of your life. Stop thinking too much. It's okay not to always know the answers. They will come when you least expect it. Relax and have a stress-free time. Thank you.
Thank you, DP Marcel. And fellow Kiwanians and guests, it has been I admittedly long but very fruitful evening. I'm pretty sure everyone enjoyed, and I'm pretty sure everyone learned a lot. I'm sure everyone here has started to think again about things that we should be thinking about. And not just in Jamaica, but we have many other Caribbean partners who are with us this evening. And it was so great to have you. We hope you will join us again. We meet every to raise our glasses and raise a toast to Kiwanis International, Jamaica land we love. It was great having you, and it's now 8 minutes past 9 in Jamaica. I don't know what time it is in Japan right now, but at 8 minutes past 9 Jamaican time, this meeting
Can't hear you.
I don't know. Are you hearing me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're in a bad spot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cut
we
out
can
a
hear you.
bit.
Okay, well, which means, well, let me go. What I'd said is that I would like to raise a toast to Kiwanis International, Jamaica land we love. And at that time it was 8 minutes past 9. It's now 9 minutes past 9 in Jamaica. And so this meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston is now terminated. Did you hear me this time?
Yeah, man.
Loud and clear.
Don't say it again.